Welcome back, dear followers. This is the history of the American Mafia. The story, the true story of the American Mafia, adapted for podcast by Fabio Fabiano and read and translated by me, Grace Carlisi. I hope you enjoy this new episode. We're going to continue talking about Joe Petrosino, and in particular, Lieutenant Petrosino'S Cases. In addition to the murder of the barrel, which we have extensively discussed in previous podcasts, there were so many cases to which the Italian-American policeman devoted himself to. As soon as he got into the police force, he adopted techniques that are still today part of investigative activities in current use all over the world. He mapped the criminal sphere with an archive of names, photos and crimes, using disguise to go undercover and infiltrate himself in dangerous areas. All sorts of clothes could be found in his closet. He was able to disguise himself as almost anyone, for example as a builder, to investigate by mingling with the workers on a construction site to acquire investigative information. He was also so skilled in disguises that not even his closest friends could recognize him as he passed by the streets. He played the part so well that at times physical duels couldn't be avoided, and he risked even his own life, up to an extent that his body was full of scars. He also possessed a photographic memory capable of recalling details from years before. Furthermore, a substantial network of informants and confidants had been created in every neighborhood of the city and within every social class. Doctors, bartenders, street cleaners, lawyers. One of his first cases was that of Natale Brogno. The night of July 17th, 1898, two officers on patrol along Leonard Street hear a man's desperate cries. They immediately headed towards the direction of the back street, not far from the Trinacria Cafe, which was a place frequented by Sicilians. When they arrived in the area from where they had heard the noise, they found a man on the ground, gasping. Not too distant from him, they surprised a young man holding a knife covered in blood. They stopped the young man, but there was nothing left to be done for the man who was on the ground. He had been stabbed fatally in the back. For the two agents, it was clear, a usual argument between Italians which had ended up in murder. But unlike similar episodes, this time the killer had been caught in the act of the crime. The interrogation was really difficult because Angelo Carboni, that is the name of the young man who had been arrested, in fact didn't speak English, and the policeman had no idea how to speak Italian. The reconstruction of the crime carried out by the agents was the following. Angelo Carboni and his fellow Italian Natale Brogno were arguing. Initially, the quarrel had broken out inside the cafe. Then the two continued the dispute on the street. Angelo Carboni admitted that in fact they were arguing, but persisted in repeating that he hadn't killed his rival. He said that they had had a fight, and at a certain point, Brogno fell down in front of him, motionless. Carboni bent over him with the intent of helping him when he noticed a knife stuck in his back. When the police arrived, he was arrested and was caught with the weapon in his hand. His story just didn't add up, and no one took Angelo Carboni's words seriously. He was put on trial and sentenced to a death penalty. Giuseppe Petrosino, when the case seemed practically closed, wandering around in disguise through the streets of the Italian quarter, began to hear rumors according to which Angelo Carboni was innocent. During his investigations, he discovered not only that the rumors that Carboni was innocent were persistent, but that, in reality, the young man was an honest worker and a good family man. Therefore, he decided to investigate the situation. He started the investigation once again, from scratch. He didn't even want to hear or read what other policemen had written or said, to avoid being influenced. Instead, he went to Sing Sing prison to interrogate at length the condemned man who was awaiting for his death. The young man actually doesn't add anything new to what he had already declared, and it was taken into consideration that probably someone was taking advantage of the pitch darkness of the night in the streets and could have stabbed his rival in the back. The Italian-American policeman was convinced of the young man's innocence and began to investigate the victim, Natalie Brogna. At first he discovered that the man had several enemies, and amongst them was a certain Salvatore Caramello, a 72-year-old man known as a particularly violent person. He also ascertained that on the evening of the murder, Caramello was with other two at the Trinaca Cafe. Therefore, Petrosino looked him up to question him. Strangely, the old man had not returned home since that evening, and obviously, this was suspicious. So, let's take a look at the situation up to now. We've got Angelo Carboni, an innocent man in jail, living a rather difficult moment, seeing that the days that separated him from the electric chair were getting shorter and shorter. And, on the other hand, Joe Petrosino, who continuously, relentlessly searched for Salvatore Caramello. Finally, a breakthrough. Petrosino identified the old man's cousin. He went undercover, he disguised himself, and followed him to the Bronx, then to Philadelphia, and finally to Baltimore, where he was led into an isolated house in the outskirts. Pretending to be a health officer, Petrosino managed to make his way into the house. The man who had answered the door claimed his name was Vianney, but Petrosino knew he was lying, and once he got him back to the station, he revealed that the man's true identity was in fact Salvatore Caramello, who under interrogation admitted to be Brogna's killer. He confirmed that he was at the bar at the time of the fight, and once the two quarrelers were out on the street, taking advantage of the darkness, he had struck the victim to death with a knife, placing the blame on Angelo Carboni. The innocent man was released from prison, and Salvatore Caramello got the electric chair in his place. Another sensational investigation that he led was that of the insurance gang. This criminal organization was made up of 112 people. They had devised an ingenious system for defrauding life insurance. The scammers, Italian immigrants, approached unsuspecting fellow citizens, offering them to take out a life insurance. The policyholder took out the policy without paying $1. It was the insurance agent who kindly offered to advance the sum of the premium, but in exchange he was appointed beneficiary of the insurance policy, with the commitment to redeem the contract as soon as the policyholder could pay the premium. Being a life insurance, the naive, usually within a year, strangely died, so the scammers took the premium. Another gang that Petrosino managed to bring to justice was that of the poisoners. The criminals, using various means, discovered the victim's town of origin. Once identified, they would approach him, asking him for information from friends or family from that town. They would invite the victim to have something to drink with them and invite them into one of their homes. There, they would offer the victim some wine, drugged, obviously, with sleeping pills, enough to put a horse to sleep. After drinking the opiate substance, the victim fainted, and when he woke, he was in the middle of the street with an empty wallet. Thanks to the collaboration of one of the victims, Giuseppe Petrosino was able to arrest the leader of the gang, Giuseppe Giuliano. The criminal obviously resisted the arrest. Therefore, there was a violent fight ensured that ended only when Petrosino got the better of him, causing him to black out after tightening his hands around his neck. There were many of Petrosino's cases that led him to fame, but one of the most praised, without doubt, was the one concerning the famous Italian tenor Enrico Caruso. The singer with an incredibly powerful voice performed in the most important theatres around the world. He also toured the United States of America, including his famous shows at the Metropolitan Opera House. Here, he encountered the Black Hand, who threatened to kill him if he didn't pay a $2,000 extortion fee. The singer paid, but obviously they came back for more, so new requests for money were advanced to him. This time, he decided not to pay, protected by 3 bodyguards and armed with an animated cane and a gun. He made statements to the newspapers claiming that the Black Hand would have to pay him and define them a bunch of cowards. Despite the initial show of courage, it did, however, start to diminish over time. He was introduced to Giuseppe Petrosino. They were both from Campania, both immigrants, both passionate about opera, and so the pair soon became close friends. Caruso confessed to his policeman friend that he had received a threat and was being asked to pay a $5,000 extortion fee. Petrosino convinced the singer not only not to pay the criminals, but he also encouraged him to establish a contact with the men of the Black Hand and agree on a place of delivery for the money. It was a very dangerous plan, but the American detective took Caruso's place and went to the meeting with the extortionists and arrested them. In spite of this bad experience, Caruso tied a unique friendship with the Chicago Mafia boss, Giacomo, or Big Jim Colosimo, as he was called. Big Jim was a man of refined tastes. He had opened a series of trendy clubs and luxury brothels. Colosimo, together with the new generation of Italian-American mobsters, began to take interest in the image of the communities of immigrants. A very useful element for this task was the nostalgia for their homeland, which was also driven by music, in particular the Italian repertoire, and above all, the Neapolitan one. In the 1920s, Cosa Nostra sponsored and invited Italian artists for long tours in the US cities where large Italian communities were present. Therefore, music and songs became a powerful social glue.